Hi there and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, my name is Charlotte Lakin and I'm a trainee solicitor at a media and entertainment company. So today I am going to talk to you about my 10 interview tips. Now, I know getting an interview can be really exciting, but for some people it can also be really nerve-wracking. So I'm hoping that by going through my 10 tips that you'll be able to go into that interview a little bit more comfortable. So tip 1, the interview starts before you even walk through that interview room. So first things first is getting to the interview on time. Now, for some places you may want to do what's called like a dry run, where you probably suss out where you need to go, how long it takes you to get there, so you can make sure that you're there in good time. If for whatever reason you get there super early, you can always hang out in the car or just take a look around the what's around, so you're familiar with your environment. But making sure that you get there, I would say probably actually go into the building about 10 minutes earlier, shows that you're there, you're on time, and it allows you to feel a little bit more comfortable when you're there. Also, another thing is to make sure that you're friendly to everybody. Everybody, from the moment that you walk in, reception staff, they may not be interviewing you, but they will potentially be giving feedback on how you're received when you go in. So make sure that you're wearing that smile, that you're friendly to everyone, and yeah, don't forget that the interview starts way before you even enter that interview room. Tip 2 is you want to research the company. Now, that sounds obvious, of course it does, but the extent to which you research is quite important. A key question that is almost asked in every interview is, what do you know about us and what we do? Now, in order to answer that question, you need to have done your research on the company. So you can do this in a number of ways. You'll want to know, for example, the history of the company. So find out how they got started, who by, and was it a series of different companies? All that sort of stuff will be really useful. Have they appeared in the news recently? Check Google News. Any latest cases that they've appeared in? Any big deals that they've made? Have they acquired a company? Have they released some assets? Have they changed their strategy? Are they looking to expand into different territories? All those sorts of things will be relevant and pertinent to your interview. What are their key initiatives? Have they got some projections of what they're going to be doing for the foreseeable future in the next 5 to 10 years? Anything that they believe in, knowing that will certainly help, and chances are that information will be on their website. You know the challenges and successes of this company. So what are they happy about that they've achieved in the last year, or what have they struggled with in the last year that they're looking to improve? Who are their competitors? Where are they going and what do they hope to achieve? Do you know the product, services or events that they put on? Maybe you've been to one of them, maybe you own one of their products, but knowing about it, if you say you don't own anything or you've never been to one of their events, but at least knowing that it exists is going to be very useful in being able to show that you know who they are and what they do. Tip 3. Now, you may be interviewed by more than one person, and therefore questions may be asked by one person, but you need to essentially talk to everyone in the room. Now, how you do this is that you make sure that you respond to the question that was asked from the person who asked it, but you also make sure you make eye contact with everybody else. The idea being that you're showing that you're inclusive, that the other people there want to hear your answers, and so therefore you really ought to be including them when you're talking. So make sure that if you are interviewed by more than one person, that you make sure that you make eye contact with each and every one of them. Tip 4, make sure that you know your CV inside and out. Now, for the basis, most interviews will be your CV. It may be an application form or cover letter, but more often than not, your CV will be incorporated at some point, and that may be the basis for a lot of questions, like saying, I can see you've worked here, I can see you've got experience there, all those sorts of things. And what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to develop on what's on your CV. So first thing, make sure that you haven't lied on your CV, because that is already like a big no-no, looks bad, and you shouldn't be doing that. But also make sure that you can go into a little bit more depth as to what you've got on your CV. So make sure you've reviewed it before you go into your interview. Make sure you have it on you as well, just in case for whatever reason they've lost it. That's happened to me. Be prepared to draw on the experiences that you have recorded on your CV and be able to just give more detail. Tip 5, be prepared for the unexpected. Now, the unexpected can be a number of different things. One in particular may be a test. Sometimes they'll tell you in advance of an interview that there'll be a test, a written test. Sometimes they won't, and the idea being to kind of catch you off guard. So the best thing is to probably always assume that there might be a test, and to probably do your research on some areas of law, just giving yourself probably a refresh, not undertaking whole new research, but just preparing yourself so that if it's like a commercial role you're going for, that you've probably looked into a little bit of commercial law, or you've looked into, if it's property, you've looked into property law, you've done just a little recap on things you may have learned before. It will just help so that you're not completely thrown off. Also, you may be asked certain questions, pretty random questions. I have two in particular stand out. One, if you were to go to dinner, would you invite dead or alive? I remember that from a few years ago. And the second one was what my favourite, like, top 3 films would be. So be able to think on your feet, and just have some answers prepared for those sorts of questions that might be unexpected. Tip 6, I would practice. I would practice with as many questions as possible that you can think of. Get someone to throw them at you or record them, and then record your answers so you can see how you do. But practice, practice, practice. Have examples ready for every kind of question. But also, words of caution as well, don't practice to the extent that your answers become wooden, that they are so pre-prepared that it just sounds fake, that you haven't really given it all that much thought. The danger with over preparation is that you can come across as a little wooden, and that you lack potentially sometimes personality and enthusiasm. So because you've practiced the question so many times, you've heard it so many times. But I would strongly suggest that you do practice, you have answers, but not to the extent that it's almost like script reading, because it can come across as quite wooden. People want to have people with personality, and they want people who are enthusiastic about the role. So make sure you don't lose that, but make sure you've prepared enough that you're not thrown off by a certain question. So it's finding that balance. Tip 7, explain your strengths and weaknesses. This is a very common question that is almost guaranteed to be asked in every interview. Now I can see why, because the idea being that they want to show that you know things that you are good at and things that you need to work on. It's having that knowledge, that understanding of yourself. And It's kind of a double-edged sword because you need to be very careful with what kinds of answers you give. It's being honest, but also not saying anything that will harm your chances. So I would really reflect on this kind of question, really think about what it is that you do well and things that you can improve on or are currently correcting, or that you've corrected in the past. And then, you know, is there something that was a weakness that you've now turned into a strength? So it's definitely worthwhile really reflecting on this kind of question. Maybe look back at some feedback sessions you've been given, and yeah, look at the things that you have realised that you've developed, that you've done well in, and things where you need to improve. And also where you've shown great strengths, what you're really good at. It's almost an opportunity to brag about certain things. So I would certainly look at that question, be really careful not to say anything that will harm your chances, but also see it as an opportunity to show that you can reflect, you know, when you need to work on or have worked on in the past, and also what your strengths are, so an opportunity to brag a little. Tip 8. So if it's a competency-based interview, you may want to look at the STAR approach. STAR is essentially an acronym for situation, task, action and result. So taking each one in turn: situation, basically self-explanatory, describe the context or background. Task, describe the task or challenge that you were faced with. Action, explain the action you took, why you did it and how you did it. Result, basically explain how it ended, what you accomplished and what you learned from it. Competency-based interviews are very common, so following those steps of STAR will certainly help you be able to answer those questions in the best way possible. Tip 9. Have some questions prepared to ask. It's quite common in the end of an interview for an interviewer to ask, so do you have any questions for us? And really you ought to have some questions prepared because it shows that you want to learn more about the company. It may be the case that your interview has been quite long and you've actually got all of that information from that interview that you probably had in your questions. That's actually happened to me before, where all the questions I had were answered during the interview. But sometimes you might actually think on the spot and have some questions to ask. But it's always good to have a list of questions that you want to ask during the interview. Be careful about the kinds of questions you're asking. It shouldn't be things like relating to salary. That's like a no-no. But I would ask questions like what the structure of the company or firm is, what they are looking for from the right candidate. Some, you know, where do you think the company's going in the next few years? Those sorts of questions, or anything about the role as well that you weren't able to get from the job description or from the interview, might be really helpful. So have some questions prepared because it will show that you really are interested in the role and the company. Tip 10, and this is probably the big take home, is it's okay to feel uncomfortable as an interviewee, and you may find that equally the interviewer is also uncomfortable, because it may not, if they don't work in HR, it may not be their job necessarily to interview all the time, and they may not be used to this kind of interaction. Really, they could be a lawyer whose day job is not to interview people, and they find themselves that they've got a role that they need to hire for, and so they need to go out there and interview for this position. So don't worry about feeling uncomfortable. It's not a normal situation to be in necessarily, and equally the person on the other side may feel a little uneasy and uncomfortable too. Ultimately, what they want to do is they want to find the right candidate for the role. So relax, be confident and smile, because I feel that automatically makes someone feel a little bit more comfortable. So that is the 10 tips. Hopefully you found that useful and insightful and will help you towards your next interview prep. If there's anything else that you want to see on my channel, if there's any other videos that I can make for you, just let me know. You can follow me on my socials, which will appear at some point. And yeah, check out my other videos. Please like, subscribe and share, because I am all for sharing tips with as many people as possible. So if you like this, please share it. And I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Take care. Bye.